What I find to be interesting is that most of our nation is raised by our elders. So most of the children grow up trying to follow the expectations, the influences, and all the ways of being human as to what our elders had taught us. A lot of our elders think that they know something about politics. It's funny how a lot of the elders now are about 58 going into 60s. And whenever something political comes up, first they'll say, that's not going to happen. Then it happens. Then they blame the president. Then a new administration comes on the scene, promising to fix everything that had been done. Those people vote for those people, telling us this is the way it is, thinking they know. Yet if they knew, why is the current situation happening? Why is children inheriting debt? Why are children inheriting problems from the 30s, World War I, World War II, the Great Depression? Was anybody alive then? Does anybody study history so thoroughly that they almost seem like a madman contradicting the social studies class? How come whenever anybody asks really serious questions, they tell them to go back to work because it's just not serious enough? Or we can't talk about that. War is on the brink. They're blaming a president. I got news for you. Your government is literally a facade. If the elders really knew what they were talking about, we wouldn't be in this situation. Everybody thinks they know what caused the problem. Does anybody have a solution? People don't want to go to war. Big business wants to go to war. Has anybody checked out what the American spending is on the military budget and the military industrial complex? Does anybody check that out? Does anybody realize that their life is really nothing but a mere breath? I've been here for 38 years. That's 3.8 decades. You don't think I'm going to be leaving this behind to my children's 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 children? Anybody thinking like that? You talk to a lot of elders and they say, well, just let it crash and burn. All right, well, then who's going to pick up the mess? So while they're not being responsible and accountable, does that leave it on us? What about our children? Maybe we should stop looking to our elders, for they're the ones that contributed to this, and throw their hands up, just like our government. You ever notice how parents of a certain era, I'd say from probably the late 50s, early 60s, going into the 70s, were heavily suppressed by their parents, but then yet became exactly like their parents? They kind of became exactly the emulated model of the government. We're going to sell you a script of truth and peace and all these things, but on the backdrop, we lie. We operate in deception. Do as we say, not as we do. Parents would always say, well, it's not the fact that you did it, it's the fact that you got caught. You start to look and analyze your parents, you start to realize they're not as saintly as they try to portray out to society. Is that authentic? So Grampy Joe has always had a problem drinking, beating women, picking up prostitutes. But we won't talk about that. No, whenever there's a problem, it gets overlooked. Back to work as usual. Business as usual. There's no one to blame but ourselves. When you elect someone to represent you, that's you. I know this message may be heavy for some. It's heavy for me. But the reality is if we keep going as we are now, the explosion of righteous consciousness will only always forever be limited. My daughter deserves a better world than I grew up in. She deserves parents like me to stand up and do something about it. They create the crisis, and they already have a solution. The virus didn't win, so the next up is World War III. People need to stand up. March to their governments, their senators, their congressmen, the people that you elected. You had enough time to vote, but you don't have enough time to care where your vote's going? Are we not allowed to hold those people accountable? It's your vote. Why vote? All you're going to do is sit back and go back to work as usual, collecting paper gods. You go to work, you collect a paycheck, money well spent. You make just enough to have to keep going back to work. Is that freedom? Maybe what you own now owns you. That was the point. So as inflation rises, and the dollar is worth nothing, and economic sovereignty is eliminated, if you even know what that means. What next? Are you prepared for that? Because you're definitely good at being a victim of reaction, not the cause. Why don't you start being the cause instead of a catalyst of reactions? Even this video is a reaction. What kind of reaction does it give you? Are we going to continue letting people that don't give two flying bucks about us, our communities, our people, our families, keep running the show?